Welcome to Wise Move, where we dive into real estate, real life, and real wisdom. I'm your host, Meredith Buckland, a top realtor in the greater Atlanta area with over 12 years of experience. I have had the privilege to help hundreds of clients navigate their moves successfully while gaining a wealth of wisdom along the way. As Einstein said, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. So join me as I connect with clients, colleagues, and industry experts to discuss market trends, share valuable advice, along with real-life stories that can help make every move a wise move. Hi, this is Meredith Buckland. I'm a top agent in Atlanta, and this is the podcast Wise Move. And I am talking with a colleague, Mike Lacy, who is a top agent in the Atlanta market as well. And we had a great conversation, Mike, a couple of weeks ago on the topic of investment and your history in that, which was fascinating. So that is an amazing podcast to listen to. And today I wanted to bring you back in and just talk about some more topics related to our current market and our backgrounds and our client value and all that. I welcome back to Wise Move, Mike. I'm glad you could be here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat again. I felt like last time we got cut off short and there was so much more to tackle. So let's dive into it today.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. There is a lot to our industry. And I think you had mentioned some important topics and we had talked about what we could talk about today. And I think the thing that's always on consumers' mind is, how's the market? We get asked that a lot. So I know, Mike, you are close by in neighboring areas. And what are you seeing in the market trends where you are for your buyers and sellers? And what kind of barometer are you getting a read on in the market?
It's such an interesting market right now. It's every client I work with, every transaction I have, I feel like I'm picking up more data just from personal experience of what's going on, and I'm trying to make sense of it, and it is a very interesting market. If you look at the broader data, we see a market that is shifting a little bit, shifting towards a more buyer-friendly market. We're seeing the days on market increase on average for listings. The price changes year over year. Some say that Atlanta's up a little bit. Some say it's down a little bit, depending on what data you're looking at. But it's a pretty flat market. We're seeing a lot of listings that are sitting around and having to do price drops. So I would say overall, it has definitely shifted a little bit more towards the buyer and is moving in that direction. What I've seen is even a bit more nuanced than that, though. Like, I had 2 listings in the past month that we put on the market that looked great, they showed well, they were priced well, like everything you want to do. And we were very fortunate to get multiple offers, which is, wait a second, we're back to 2021, we're competing over houses. But in both cases, the offers were below asking price. So it was like the buyers are out there competing over the best homes, but they're like, we want it, but we don't want it that bad. And so that's been really interesting for me. I don't know, what has your experience been like recently?
Yeah, similar. We'll go in, even if we're priced really well and competitively. I always tell my sellers, if you price at a certain level, you're going to draw more buyers in immediate, and they're going to drive the market price up, bid against each other. And especially when we have buyers that are being more cautious, you want that. The rates are high. The home prices are high. The income is not to that level. So I'll price a home, and we may even have people walk in the door day one on a home that's priced well and in good condition, and they're immediately throwing over an offer way below price. And so we're day one on the market. We have 5 other buyers who are sending offers too, and they still may send that over. So it has been a little erratic. And at times hard to tell my sellers, hey, this is what you can expect, or this is what we're seeing, because even week to week it changes. If there's something with the economy or something political or anything that impacts, it really comes to a screeching halt, and we see it. So I could put a listing on and something happen and everyone just freezes. So that's hard. Again, like you mentioned, the market we came out of post-COVID, and it was a hot market. It didn't matter the condition. It didn't matter anything you could just throw it up on the market and you would have a sidewalk full of buyers ready. And that's just not where it's at right now. And I find like my sellers really have to get it in top condition because buyers are like, I want it move-in ready. And I also want you to pay all my closing costs. And the whole list, send my kids to college. I don't know what it is, but it's really definitely switching to more of the buyer market. But then it's also hard because the buyers are still pent up on the sidelines a little bit, waiting for some of the changes to take place in the rates and things in the economy to level out a little bit. So that it's been similar. So it's not the same smooth path of real estate where you just put something on and everything was steady. It's definitely erratic. And you came out, you got your license. I think I remember you saying on the heels of COVID. And then that first year and then coming out, what have you seen the difference between like then and now to what you have to do to prepare your buyers or sellers for the market?
Yeah, that's such a good question because it obviously has changed a lot. I was basically born in the multiple offer, and we're talking like I had listings during that time that had 30 to 40 offers. It was hard to manage on the listing side because you would put a home on the market and your phone would not stop ringing. Like we were so dialed in where we would put a home on the market on Thursday, it would have showings nonstop until Sunday, we'd have an offer deadline, and I would be doing nothing but servicing that one listing for that weekend. After that, most of my work was done. So
Yeah.
it was so dialed in and I got used to it. And I even liked it. I was working with mostly buyers at the time of negotiating, offer strategy, understanding the rights of the buyer and the rights of the seller and the give and take that goes into that. And at that time, it was very much, how do we win? We found a house you loved. We know the interest rates are an incredible opportunity to take advantage of. How do we get this house? And I think now a lot of that has shifted to more negotiating, more of really trying to work out, like, one, trying to get buyer and seller together on price, but then two, figuring out terms that are going to work for everyone. I feel like we're seeing more home sale contingencies and temporary occupancy, although there was a lot of that in 2021 as well. But I think it's really shifted from just trying to win a house versus and competing against other buyers versus now it's more, okay, we've got a seller that wants to sell their home and they have their own expectations in mind, and we've got a buyer that wants to buy a home but they've also got things they're trying to work around. They're trying not to have a mortgage payment that's half their income and trying to find something affordable, and it's really trying to get those two to a place where everyone's happy. And I think that's a new challenge that oftentimes can be navigated and sometimes just can't.
Yeah, and like you said, like when you came on, when you're putting a listing on and you have 30, 40 offers, and that is no joke. I mean, it would be that many would come on. Your sellers could get lazy in the sense of what they needed to do, how they needed to negotiate. The buyers were throwing everything on the table. It was really hard and challenging for me because I worked with a lot of first-time buyers to see them say, hey, what is it going to take to win this offer? And trying to write a competitive offer while still trying to protect them. Okay, you can throw away the inspection, but I would not advise it. But somebody else may be doing that. So how do you stay competitive in that? And there were times when honestly it would come down to even a relationship. So colleague to colleague, you and I don't work at the same brokerage. We work at differing groups, and for the most of the consumers that doesn't really matter to them. HomeSmart or Compass or Keller Williams or who, to know that they have a professional working for them, but then behind the scenes, professional to professional. If I were to get to a house and my buyer wanted to put an offer on it, or an agent was putting one on my listing, and I've worked with that client's agent before and we had a good relationship, I'm really going to be more likely to tell my seller, hey, this one's solid, and they're going to have their person. So even if this one looks a little bit better on paper, I think I have really good confidence in this agent and how they work. So sometimes that was a key to moving into that type of discussion. But yeah, now it's like shifting the seller back to, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to bring that buyer to me? And it's not just they're going to pay anything and I'm not going to have to do any repairs. Because a lot of times, even in the shift when it was a seller market, The buyer, if they would do the inspections, that seller almost felt, I don't need to touch anything. It's as is. It's your problem now. And now it's shifted where that, hey, seller, not only are they going to try to be aggressive up front, they're going to come through on the inspection and probably tear through that inspection report the same way. And so the seller really has to shift nowadays in their thinking with that. But again, too, I find a huge value in working with another professional like yourself, and that really mattered too in the whole bid process and working both for the seller and the buyer. I don't know if you found the same, but I often would come across an agent where I was like either negative or positive. I had some experience that might make me go, hey, seller, that looks good, but I know the track record of this agent and it may not go as well as you think, or vice versa.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you experienced that, but that was something I
real
had.
estate is very relational, and that stuff is important. That's part of one of the many things that we guide our clients on is we can say, and I always present it as a data point, right? Not to be too black and white, but I might say, hey, I've worked with this agent before. They're amazing. I think they're making sure that their buyer or seller is prepped well and has reasonable expectations. Or on the flip side, it could be, hey, I've worked with this person before and it was a bumpy road. Doesn't mean that we have to say yes or no or do this or that. Or thing to consider along with the rest of the situation and whatever offers being presented.
Yeah. And I think so many discussions now, as you said, like the negotiations are not just on that transaction, but we're seeing a lot of buyers that come to the market, and we have in the past, but even more so, they're hesitant about signing any sort of buyer broker agreement, the terms of what that could mean if they're totally going to be hiring and covering compensation for and all of that. If it's not covered, does that agent bring me value? And what, if any, agent do I need? And how have you handled that discussion with some of your buyers, especially in particular when we have the internet and they feel like they have access to every bit of information and data they need and may not need you as part of that? What has been some of your arguments for, and how do you present that?
And this was back in 2022 of a client that came to me. He was an investor from California, and he was buying his first property, and he was referred to me by a friend, and he said, I've already been looking with this agent from a company that I won't mention, but they're like a discount brokerage that will give some of their commission back to the buyer at closing. And we had a good conversation and everything, but he said, hey, I'm already working with them. He expressed some hesitation. And I remember we talked a little bit about it, and then after we got off the call, I thought even more, and I sent him a text, and I said, look, first of all, that agent is showing you condos that have rent restrictions, and you're trying to buy an investment property. So, like, right there, that should tell you that you have someone that is the blind leading the blind. Like, they are literally showing him properties that he wants to rent out that he might not legally be able to rent out. If you're about to make $100,000 decision in terms of the cash that you're putting into it, or a $500,000 decision in terms of the asset you're buying and the debt that you're taking on, make sure you have someone that's good representing you. But the other thing I mentioned is his friend that had referred me. I said, keep in mind, your friend so-and-so, I helped them find this property. It was new construction. By the time they closed on it, it was already worth $50,000 more than they were paying. So they had instant equity. He lived there for a year. He moved out. He was renting it out, and it was making cash flow each month. It was just like a win kind of investment. And I said, look, just looking at that one example, your friend made an extra $50,000 by having a little bit of guidance towards buying the right property for them. And with this other agent, this other brokerage, maybe you can save 1% of the that's $3,000, $4,000. So I just think it's really important for people to keep in mind that the scale of the decision that you're making, it's for most people, it is the largest financial decision they are going to make in their life. Yeah. So would you rather have no representation, bad representation, or great representation? And yes, commissions are a good amount of money. I recently sold a $800,000 home, and I was thinking about the fact that a 6% commission on that is $48,000. But when there's so much money on the line, whether you're buying or selling, if you're buying, you want it to be a good investment. If you're selling, you want to sell it for top dollar. even though the amount of commission does seem like a big amount of money, the clients, the consumers that are making these decisions, they're making such important decisions that having good representation will not only pay for itself, but more on top of that. And then you add in the fact that there could be lawsuits, there could be
Hmm.
horrible things that can happen when you buy the wrong house or sell a house the wrong way, don't disclose something. There's just so many things that can go wrong that having good representation will end up saving you money, time, headaches, stress. It just makes your life better 9 times out of 10.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. And for a lot of them, it's the what they don't know that they don't know. And you and I, we go through, we take our training. We're also, if we're part of an ethics board, we're held to a higher standard. We have more education that we're constantly doing. We're in the contract. We are well versed in that, or should be. And just like you could represent yourself in a court of law and bypass a lawyer and bypass all of that. But is that the wisest decision that you would make to represent yourself in a very emotional, a very legal, a very costly financial decision that you also want to be standing there with the confidence that you need to represent yourself well? And so for many of my clients, yes, can the younger generation, do they have more access now than before, where they might have just a big real estate book, and then we moved into everything online, and now with Zillow and other groups, buyers feel like I can just Google it, I can find a home, I can hit that reference button there on Zillow and somebody can open that door and it's just simple, then I'll make an offer on the home. How do you do that? Or I'll call the agent on the sign who represents the seller and I'll try to get access. And then I'll have them write the, well, in all of those cases, you are going through the one person who represents the opposite of you, and they know the contract, or should, and they're not going to write it for your favor. And so you could lose thousands of dollars and not even know it because you're trying to bypass your own representation, which in most cases, a good representation will be able to negotiate that for you plus additional savings, so that in the end you feel really confident that I got that home, I got it for the great price, and I also had the best representation. And that those, we all have horror stories about situations that didn't go so well. I had a client, they weren't my client at the time, but I had met them and they were telling me, hey, we found a home and it didn't work out. So we're on pause for home shopping, but when we get back in, we'll check with you. But it just didn't go well. And I asked them a little bit more about it. And they said, we don't know what happened, but partway through the journey, we also lost all of our earnest money. And I was like, wow, that's hard to do in some ways. So what happened? And they had no clue. It had been in a moment of like I think the inspection period or whatever. And in that case, they didn't have great representation and they were just told they lost the house, they lost the earnest money. And going back through and helping them when they did ask for my help, I was able to discover through the contract, through all the information, that actually you were not supposed to have lost that, and guided them to go back to that brokerage. And they did. And turns out they were able to resecure that lost earnest money from months before. And then we were able to guide them through a new transaction to a better home with greater savings. And in all of that, it really shows the value of having representation and what that means and how we represent that. I'd love to hear, Mike, like when you represent a buyer, what do you feel like you bring to that buyer that maybe is unique to you, or maybe even standard, maybe even what other agents are doing, but maybe a step above? Or what do you focus on, I would say, when you approach a buyer or help them?
First and foremost, I just love being a consultant. We might have talked about it briefly on the last episode, I can't remember. But before this, I was basically a coach, slash coach with competitive debate. And so I love just being able to take my experience personally and my experience with other clients and help guide people towards the right decision. It's always going to be their call at the end of the day. They're the ones that are going to be living in the house. They're the ones that are writing a check. It's their call what they want to do, but I'm going to give them all the information, all the expert opinion that I can to help them make the best decision. That is my goal, and that's what I try to do. And I think part of that too is expediting a lot of the process. Like, I think I do a really good job of digging into what's important to them, what they're looking for, what they need out of this house, where they need it to be, prioritizing between those things, and getting crystal clear really fast
Mhm.
on what is going to be the best fit for you. How can we optimize all these different needs that you have? And then I'll help guide you towards making the best possible decision. And I think without expert representation, that could be a 2-year process for some people. That could be of, I'm looking over here, but I actually don't really like that area. And oh, I was looking at $700,000 houses for 4 months. And then I called a lender and figured out that I couldn't qualify for that. So I think I help really be like, all right, what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? And let's make it happen. And here's the steps we're going to do. And I'm going to help you knock it out. And I'm going to send you to the right people and give you a couple different options of who to talk to. And let's make it happen.
Yeah. Has there been anything during the process that you have gone, oh, you know what? I have learned from this. I'm improving on this area, or this has been really helpful, even as you go through, like now we're under contract and we're going to that closing table. What has been, or what are some of the areas that you find that have been really important for you to handle or focus on?
It's hard to say like any one broad area. A recent stuff to mind, and I think it really demonstrates that we never stop learning. In this 5.5 years now, you much longer, and I'm sure you can attest that we never stop learning in this industry. I'll give a somewhat smaller example, but I had a client recently that was buying in cash, and they found a house that they really liked. They were keeping an eye on it, and it had a huge price drop, and they had already seen it, and they were like, we decided we want this house. We saw that they just did this price drop. We want to go secure this before there's a multiple offer situation and a bidding war ensues. So we were putting together an offer. We had an inspection period. We didn't have an appraisal. We didn't have financing. So the only contingency we had was our due diligence. And so one of the things that we wanted to make more appealing about our offer was increasing the earnest money. So we did percent earnest money, which, generally speaking, can be $10, $20, $30,000 or more. So that was a lot of money. But the only way they would still have the inspection period to decide if they wanted to back out and get their earnest money back. Once we did the inspection and they decided that they were good with the house, there was really no scenario that I could think of that would cause the deal to have an issue and cause it to fall apart. So I said, you're pretty safe here to go ahead and increase your earnest money, because once we pass inspection, what is there to worry about? So they went ahead and did it. And we went past inspection. It was a pretty new home. There were no issues there. And about 3 or 4 weeks into the transaction, another house came on the market in the same neighborhood that they thought they might like a little bit more. And so we went and looked at it, and luckily they didn't like it as much. But for a moment there, it was like, okay, you can go buy that other house if you want, but then you're going to lose your earnest money, which was a lot of
Right.
money. And I had just never run into that
Yeah.
situation or considered that earnest money deals don't just fall apart because of a loan or because of an inspection. There could be the fact that your buyers just change their mind. And so that was one little learning that I had never encountered before, that now going forward, it's just another little nuance, another little detail that if someone was buying a home, even for the second or third time, they would probably never consider these things. But the more deals we do and the more times we go through this process, we just pick up more and more of these little nuggets, these little tidbits that we can then pass on to future clients.
No, I think that's really good. And I think more in the cash buyer, that flexibility with a little bit of change. And that's why sometimes, even for my seller, it's making sure, okay, if we do have a cash buyer, that we have that strong earnest money, because they're more likely to kind of have second thoughts a little bit easier. Once you're in the loan, you're in loan process, you're a little bit more set in that I'm relying on that person to give me the money. I don't want to mess anything up. This is what I can afford. Not to say you don't have second thoughts, but you have that finance contingency, you have the appraisal, you have some of the other areas to protect you. But the cash buyer they can be a little bit fickle at times within that. I had one though that wasn't a cash buyer, and it was a similar story. And we were under contract and full speed ahead. And then they said, "Hey, I just saw this other home online." And I'm like, "Oh no, like what do you mean?" And they said, "We don't know if it would be, but would it be possible still to look at it?" And all, like you said, all of this scenario comes back, and of course, I'm going to look at it with them and see, and it didn't work out. But I told him, I'm like, it's like you're at the altar getting ready to be married, and you see somebody walk through the lobby, and you're like, hold it, I want to go check that out. I'm like, we're in escrow, we're moving forward. When we make that offer and we're moving forward, we need to really make sure that we're not playing a game at that point, because although we're going to have emotions, it's very emotional. We really need to make sure that we're serious about what we're doing. And it's hard because you and I as agents, we're on the back end making everything work. And we know all the time that's gone into it, from title companies pulling title and lenders doing all of their work and even our work. And if the whole deal stops before it gets to the closing, it could be months, it could be weeks of labor and work that just totally ends. So that's a different perspective when you're even on our side of
It definitely
all of
is.
that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I still try to always think about the client first. It's, look, if this is just the wrong house and we need to cancel
Right.
everything, that's okay. The attorney will be all right, I'll be all right. But I think you brought up a really good point and mentioned it earlier about how emotional this is. I even worked with some family members recently that they were just like very worried and had a lot of anxiety and a lot of emotion behind it, and I totally get it. This a lot of times, and even still, when I go to buy a property or sell one, I get a little emotional. I get a little bit
Yeah.
crazy, and I have to try
Yeah.
to put my buyer hat on, and then put my realtor hat on, and then put my buyer hat on, and go between these two roles. And sometimes I'm even like, look, I love saving on commission and all that, but I'm like, I might need someone to help me here. I might need a high agent just to keep my head on straight, because it's
Yeah.
really hard to think clearly when you're in
Yeah.
the thick of it and when you're going through that process.
Yeah, it really can be. For myself anyway, I will take on some of that emotion. Like, I have to be calm and steady, even though in the background I might be taking on the weight of that client. I might be waking up in the middle of the night thinking, did I make the right decision? If I guide them wrong, if I say the wrong thing, if I don't do my homework on this, and there's a mistake that's made, I feel responsible. But then I'm also trying to stay calm and really listen to them, listen to their concerns, talk through it, be available, be steady, and not match with an attitude or emotion, even if they unload, to stay, because most of them just in that moment, they're not themselves through the whole process, because it is emotional. It's one of the biggest investments they're probably purchasing, like you said. And so guiding them through that is really important. I think, like, one of the things that I had to work through, even as a new agent years ago to now, even, was in my approach. Because when I first got my license and I first started out with clients, I was like, I love to negotiate, and I do, and I love to do all of that. But I would sometimes come at it a little more like forceful. This is just how it is. And then as you get through all of that, I think one of the things I learned was you're trying to get everyone to come together, right? And so you're trying to really be a good listener and an active listener who's listening to where are the objections coming from that agent, that seller, my own buyer, whoever I'm representing. Where are the objections? Where are the fears, the concerns? Listening to it and then finding a common solution that brings everyone together. Because sometimes we're just holding on to an argument or a point or a frustration or concern, and we're not coming together, and it's over minor things or things that can be easily solved. But if you get attitudes and emotions in there from the agents in particular, that can really ruin the entire deal and process. So trying to come at it from a standpoint of being a really good active listener and not just to my party, but to all the parties involved, then I can come back and I can talk to my client and say, hey, here is where I think this is, or hey, agent, here's where I think we can meet together for that. So that's an area that I probably have found and strengthened in and still growing in, but definitely from the beginning, a little over 12 years ago to now, has been in that arena.
I think
For
every
sure.
great agent probably goes through that growth at some point,
Yeah.
hopefully, because there are agents that they just want to look like Superman to their clients, and so they're going to negotiate heck to try to get a discount. And that's fine to some extent. You do
Yeah.
want to represent your client, but it also becomes pretty obvious when it's just becoming about ego. And sometimes it's really even just the agent's ego. It's not even
Yeah.
necessarily their client. And that's where you get into the reputation stuff that we talked about
Yeah.
earlier, where it's like, I'm going to have to consider that the next time I get an offer from you. But I totally agree. I think early on, especially for me being a little bit younger, I felt like I had to really prove my worth and prove my value and get as much money as possible off. And I still love a good negotiation. But I think you're right. There's times where it's like, hey, client, like they're already selling this home at a loss.
Yeah.
Like we've gotten X amount of dollars off. You're buying it for
Right.
less than what they paid for it. Do we really need to go back for another $2,000 or
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that where it's like read the room, see the whole
Yeah.
situation. I like to fight for my clients 80, 90, 95% of the way. But then there's that other bit that's we're all human here and we're all just trying to get to the closing table. Can we do so in a peaceful way where everyone feels good?
Yeah, no. And within that, how we translate the interaction that we have with the other agent to our clients can sometimes, because they're not having conversations, the buyers and sellers are not often having any conversations together. So if we're not careful as agents, we can go back and just say, they're just being this and this difficult. Maybe they aren't, but sometimes it's protecting them from that assumption or perception or whatever it is. And because then all of a sudden they dig in, oh, and I'm going to be. And then you just have everyone at odds and no one is working together. And I often tell them we want a transaction where when we come together at the closing table, we all feel really good about it. We feel like we have found a good value and both sides have a win and agents have worked together. And those are the best closings when we're all together and it's just a win and successful. And one side doesn't feel like they've been poorly represented or beaten up, or I don't even know what's happening here, but that's where we all want, or at least I want to try to get the clients to at the end of the day at a closing like that, which has been good.
Yeah, and that's what a really
Yeah.
good negotiator looks like. I think the public perception is the tough negotiator is like 485, take it or leave it. It's like this very
Yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah.
And no, the best negotiator, like the really good negotiators,
Yeah.
you don't even realize that they're getting what they
Yeah.
want, but they're also giving the other side what they want too. It's like
Yeah.
that's the dream outcome is when you can represent your client really well, get them a great deal or for a bunch of money or on the right timelines. It's like you said, it's about listening. It's about figuring out what's important to someone and getting them that. And if you
Yeah.
have the right skill set to do that artfully, both sides will feel like they won, which is the best
Yeah.
outcome because then your
Yeah.
client won and the other side is happy and we're all good.
Yeah. Now, with it within your business, have you represented more buyers, more sellers? Are you balanced? What do you find that you do more of?
Definitely more buyers. Yeah. It's
Okay.
starting to shift a little bit more, but as I think a lot of agents start out, been more buyer heavy.
Yeah.
How about
And two, yeah, I would say in the beginning, it was definitely more buyers, which I think is normal as you build through it. And then eventually some of your buyers then are going to that next level and they become your sellers. But I had a few that there's always that first listing. And it's so strange anytime that I'm thinking back 10, 11, 12 years, but when you gain that person's trust to represent them and list their home, and the whole time you're thinking, I hope I know what I'm doing. I hope I know what I'm doing. Because when you go and get your testing and you spend hours getting licensed to do this, you don't come out of it immediately with the oh, that was a test on how to do the job. That was just a test on the law and the legal and really the attention to detail of it. And so then you start hitting the ground and you're like, now how do I do this job? And so being with having good mentors and having good agency and all of that helps train you. But there's always that first and that first listing and that first buyer. And then you look back and you're amazed that a level of trust was given to you. And then you just have to keep working harder and harder each time to just prove I'm relevant, I bring value, I'm helpful to this person. And you're learning, like you said, all along the way, we're learning. If we really want to do the job, we're still continuing to learn. None of us have fully arrived, but it's a whole journey going from that. So now I do half and half, and the listings are great, but it's also like the buyers. When I have, for mine, when an agent comes on my listing, I try to be available that whole entire weekend to pick up that phone, to talk to them in the moment, text them, give them the information they need, because I find out that the more information they have, the more communication with me, the better the offers are going to be written for my seller. They're going to get stronger offers, and that buyer's agent is going to really feel like they're being heard and valued. And then in tune, the compensation that they're given, I really feel like needs to really showcase that. So I always am like, they're the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this. They might have opened 40 doors for that buyer to get to this point. They might have written 10 offers, and it's been such a journey. So trying to be available for them and trying to actively engage them, because every buyer is going to have their maximum limit on what they can offer. But helping that agent to at least have your full attention during that listing weekend is so important and can be valuable, because they've been working so hard to get there. And for your seller, it's just better because you're now positioning the offers that will best be in their favor.
Oh, I'm consistently blown away when I'll see listings that have iPhone photos, or there's 4 photos of the house, and I'm like, okay, like, who wants to go see that? You haven't given me any information. There's so many things. And then the communication as well that you mentioned. It's like, I'll want to schedule a showing, can't get in touch with the agent. Well, a lot of times if I can't get in touch with you on the day that we're going out, we're probably just not going to see that house at all. If we're going out every day, right? It's not, oh, I'll just come do it tomorrow. People are busy. They might see another house that they like and they offer on. So it's crazy to me, especially because sellers are paying the commission for their agent. Yeah. And when they're getting that type of representation, I'm just like, I see why sometimes people have a bad view of realtors. Because if I had an experience like that I was paying that much money to someone and my house wasn't selling, or I had to sell it for a lot less because they weren't really doing a great job, I would also be very upset. So I do. It's an interesting industry in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and you really do. You really do have to prove your value as you go through with each of these clients. And some of them have had good experience in the past. Some of them maybe not so great experience with other agents, and that's all kind of what has made their thinking where it is. But at the end of the day, when I'm sitting down with a seller and they're getting ready to maybe go to a next stage of life, whether it's buying another home or downsizing because they're going into retirement, bottom line, they are concerned about getting the most for that investment. And so it can be easy for them to maybe just go with the agent who's giving them the highest number. And some agents will just throw out a high number to get the listing, but it's not really helping them with bringing to them the facts of the market, the math that's going to math against them, the true market assessment, those buyers that are in the market, that's your market value. And all of that, bringing to them truth and common sense and facts so that they can make the best decision, and then guiding them through it. Like you said, giving them the best visual representation out there, having the best photographers, the best videos, having an agent that is then available and accessible to those buyers and their agents while it's listed, getting good feedback, getting them in the home promptly, getting all of the information they need for the disclosure. So all of that is just key areas that I think sometimes the seller doesn't know what they don't know, and they're just looking, I'm just going to grab that discount, or I'm just going to grab the person that's telling me they can give me the highest. And really within all of that, just helping a seller to realize and understand the value that you can bring and walk them through and guide them. That's an important conversation and discussion that has to take place. And hopefully the sellers are seeing that value from your
Absolutely.
referrals and from everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say too, what have you found, how, like with your buyers and stuff and sellers, have you found like really good resources that you're often able to recommend, whether it's lending, title, repair people? How do you operate within that for your customers?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's another great advantage of working with an agent is they're just well networked and connect with a lot of people. And people don't even talk about it that much, but I feel like there's a concern of, well, are you just in bed with this person getting kicked or something? And all of that is illegal, right? That's one thing we learned when we got our license.
Yeah.
I can't get a kickback from the lender or my contractor or whatever. So I really enjoy getting to refer great third-party vendors. A lender, a contractor, contractors especially, so hard to come by a good contractor. But especially me doing a lot of the investing stuff, I have some great connections when it comes to handymen, subcontractors, all of that. And it's a great feel-good moment when I could say, this is the guy you want to call. You can trust him. He's going to give you a reasonable price. He's going to get the work done. Because I know firsthand that I'm through a lot of bad contractors and I've made a lot of phone calls and I've had to do a lot of work and lose a lot of money to get to that really good relationship. So I always love being able to connect people when I can. And I'll even, if they say, hey, do you have someone who does so and so, and I don't really have a great recommendation, I won't go find someone and be like, oh, use this person, because I don't know who I'm setting them up with. Every referral that I make is a reflection on me. So I try to really stick to the cream of the crop, the people that I really believe in. And I think it's something that my clients really value.
Yeah, and especially coming from the investment side of it, where you and your wife are doing some of these house changes and flips and stuff. And I know even for mine, it's been, if I find someone that's really good, I have found being able to refer them confidently to my buyers, to my sellers, and having them immediately respond, oh, this is Meredith's client. We're going to drop almost what we're doing right now and get over there because there's an immediate need. So if sometimes we're in a situation of an inspection and I need to have an HVAC person or a structural person or a plumbing person, whatever it is, because we've got a quick question on this and the clock is ticking, having such good resources to say, okay, can you get over here really quick and look at this, and having them come, that has been so timely and cost saving for my clients, because then we're able to quickly make a decision. Oh, this isn't a big deal. Or this is how much it's going to cost if we move forward. So even in those moments of the actual due diligence time, it's been just so helpful. And I have had, when I first started out, I used a larger group to do my inspections, and they were great. I could pull any number of them. And then one of them, I went off with one of them who established his own business, and he was just very balanced. But within that, I have, for 12 years, this is probably one of the things that I do to keep learning, is I try to go to every inspection that I can. Because after a time, they're almost similar. There's similar things they're checking out. But if I can be there, and if I can be there with my client, even better. But then we can walk through that whole inspection report a lot less emotionally than if we're looking at 60 pages or 30 pages of scripted verbiage that is what the inspector is going to put on certain areas. But we can walk through it and go, remember, we saw this, we looked at that, and this is what it was, or we were able to pull in a second set of eyes, an expert on it. So for me, that has been very valuable, is that time to keep an especially emotional. It's like the emotions on steroids during that due diligence, both for the seller and the buyer, and to walk through it and learn through it with the buyer and that trusted inspector, and then be able to pull in other resources to look at it. So that's been an area that for me has been really helpful too, with a lot of my clients, and getting through that extra emotional moment of the transaction and hopefully getting them all the way to a safe home. But So, Mike, I'm curious if you were, as we wrap up today, if you were to tell or share with another agent who's coming, wants to get into the market, or somebody that wants to become an agent, or maybe is an agent, what would be the number one advice that you would give to them on either the field and getting into it or how to best do this job?
I would say two things. Number one, and this is based off my experience, it's not like you have to go this route, but I would say number one, join a team. When you're starting out, you don't know what you're doing. Don't worry about the splits. Don't worry about how much money you're going to make as long as you can pay the bills and stay in the business. Get as much help and as much training as you can possibly get. So whether that's a brokerage that's very hands-on or a team where you can talk to your team leader every day, or if you have ongoing transactions, that catalyzed my growth so much. Having someone I can talk to every day, getting training, seeing other transactions. Like, I was on a pretty big team, and every day we were talking about, here's this crazy thing that happened with my buyer. Here's this crazy thing that happened with my seller. Here's how we negotiated this deal. So I got 100 deals worth of experience in the first year just by learning from other people what was going on. I was also able to get through my first 12 to 24 transactions with someone kind of hand-holding, being like, wait, don't do that. Oh, go ahead and say this. Call this person now. Because it can be crazy when you're starting out. Like you said, the test, the course doesn't really teach you any of that stuff. You don't even see a purchase contract until after you're already an agent, which is pretty crazy. So that would be my first piece of advice. And then the second thing I would add on, because I also saw a lot of people come and go on that team, people that came and built a successful career, and people that came and then 3 months later they were back to their old job. I would say, if you can, do it full time. Full time as fast as you can. It's so difficult to be part time and to juggle multiple things. So even if that means having to save up some money and not make any money for a little bit, you can still, there's other ways you can do some showings for this agent or help out with an open house over here. You can make little bits of money before those commissions start coming in. But if you can get to full time and dedicate all of your energy and all of your time and all of your attention to networking and to building your book of business and building relationships with people and planting those seeds, that's how you're actually going to get a sustainable business that can become a full career. So those would be my two pieces of advice to someone who's starting out or maybe newer and struggling.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Like, the whole team, the team concept is very important. I came on under one of the top producers at that time and learned through that, and I was part-time as well doing another job because it was, you're in between both worlds, but then realizing I've got to be all in. Like, my clients have to know that I am so well versed and studied in this market, in this industry, and I'm available at any time for them, not just, hey, I can only show you at this time because I've got another job. So all of that is such valuable information. I know it's hard to do it, especially if you're the primary breadwinner. You're like, but in other ways, it pushes you because you've got to make it. It's sink or swim. So you're like, I've got to make this. And so many don't, but and you're weathering all sorts of markets and, everything that's coming at you and all the industry. But I think that's such good advice though, for those agents. Hard to do sometimes, but it is at the end probably what will help keep you going longer in this. So appreciate it. Mike, I cannot believe we have spent another great hour together. And hopefully I'd love to do this again. I think you have a great business sense there where you are, and I resonate well with much of what we've talked about and who you are as an agent. So I really love that collaboration because I think it helps where there's thousands of people in Atlanta area to service. And so I can't do it all. You can't do it all, but together we're glad to help as many as we can. But even for those agents, buyers, sellers, anyone listening, hopefully some of this is just helpful information to them. And then also being able to find you, Mike, where you are in your community, and myself, and hopefully we can come back together and continue some conversations.
I would love it. Always a pleasure, and same for you. I just can tell, not having worked together yet, that you're a great agent, that you're great for your clients, great to work with, that you have a high standard of integrity and ethics, and I think that's a really important piece of this. Sometimes you can see some less favorable characteristics of people come out, but there's also a lot of really,
Yeah.
really amazing people, some of the
Yes.
kindest, nicest, smartest people that I've encountered, and that those are the
Yeah.
type of people that are a true godsend to their clients and a real pleasure to work with as well. So it's always nice even just getting to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it's great. This has been great. Thanks for joining Wise Move today, Mike, and I hope to have you back on in the future.
Let's do it. Thank you, Meredith.
Let's do it. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to Wise Move. I hope today's episode provided you with the tools and insights you need to confidently navigate your real estate, community, and life journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and please share this podcast with friends and family who are making their own moves. Stay connected for more real estate insights, and remember, every great move starts with a wise move.